Assalamualaikum and good morning to our honorable guests, brothers and sisters. Before our program begins, I would like to remind you to ensure that your mic is muted except during the Q&A session, and if possible, turn on your camera throughout the program. Please download the virtual background that is provided in the chat box. As a reminder, don't forget to fill in the attendance and feedback form. I would also like to remind all of you that there will be a photography session at the end of the talk. Thank you for your cooperation. Bismillah. Now we will officially begin our long-awaited event. It is a great pleasure and privilege for me to welcome all of you to this momentous event. Praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our health that we are able to gather for our program today. We highly appreciate your presence in attending this event. I am Azabatusha binti Muhammad Allah, your MC for today. In order to get his blessings, I would like to invite Brother Nabil for the dua recitation. Please welcome.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي ويكافئ مزيدا يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلالك عظيم سلطانك اللهم اجعل واسع تقبل وما قرأنا من القرآن العظيم وما هللنا من لا إله إلا الله ما استغفرنا وما قلنا من يا الله ما صلينا على النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في هذه الساعة المباركة هدية منا واسلة ورحمة منك نازلة وبركة شاملة وصدقة متقبلة نقدمها ونهديها إلى هرة سيدنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم إنا نسألك من الخير كله عاجله وآجله ما علمناه منه وما لم نعلم ونعوذ بك من الشر كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم ونسألك جنة ما وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل ونسألك من خير ما سألك عبدك ورسولك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونستعيذك مما استعاذك منه عبدك ورسولك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Thank you, Brother Nabil, for the dua. May Allah bless this morning's knowledge sharing session to go on without any interruptions or obstacles, inshallah. Before we move on to the most awaited moment, I will briefly introduce our beloved guest, Brother Harun Shaukat Ali. Born in India, he is one of our IIUM 2011 alumni that graduated with a bachelor's in computer science. And he has also completed his master's in information technology in 2016, which are also taken in IIUM. Currently working as product development project manager at GR Type Syndrome Berhad, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He has been working with them since August of 2013 until present. During his commitment in GR Tech so far, he has worked on and successfully managed 42 plus projects and increased overall project productivity by around 30%. Thus, we feel delighted to have an amazing speaker for today's sharing session. And now let's have a glimpse on navigating the modern IT industrial landscape in the face of work-related paradigm shifts. For the participants, if you have any question during this session, you may type your question in the chat box. Now, please welcome Brother Harun Shaukat Ali. The floor is yours.
Brother Harun, you didn't open your mic.
Sorry for that. Hi. All right. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Right. Assalamu alaikum. Glad to be in on this talk, and thanks for everyone who are attending. All right. So I wanted to introduce a bit on what the general talk is about, and then we can get through the different aspects of it. So the idea of this talk is this, right? Now I graduated from UI around, well, undergraduate was around 2011, right, which is exactly 10 years ago. And then master's was around 2015, right? So that's another 6 years ago. And back then, right, back then for all of those who have been graduated since then, seniors and so on, right, the way they used to approach university or the subjects, they do in university, the way they approach the job market or how they search for jobs, how they perform at work, and how their work is structured in the university, outside the university, was very, very different as opposed to what we have now, right? And so that's what we call the paradigm shift, right? The way things worked and what things worked 10 years ago is completely different from what works in today's world, right? So the idea of this talk is sort of, I wouldn't say 100% prepare everyone for tackling everything that's out there, right? But to give you the best experience I can from my industry based on my own experience, right? Based on my own limited experience on some tips and tricks, or what are the things you can work towards, right? So that you have a better chance of approaching this new way of handling in the industry, the new way of working, right? Or you have a better chance of approaching, let's say, your university subjects and what you do at the university and so on, right? So the idea is, at the end of the day, you walk out from here after this talk with at least some more information equipped, so that you're more confident towards some of the choices you make at university, or how you approach job hunting in future, or how you approach working at a job which you have applied and successfully gotten in future, right? So that's the basic idea of today's talk. All right. Okay. Can we have the next slide, please? Thanks. Right. So the first part of today's was explaining the paradigm shift, right, which I just did. It's more about how things have changed between the past and present, right? Now we're going to look through this, the shift, and how one can handle this over three main areas, right? The first area is university studies, in the sense that what are the things you as a student of UIA can do at the university level, so that you are better equipped when you go out of university, right? So that's one area we're going to look into, right? Then it goes about the second area, which is job hunting, which means when you have left university, right, one of the main areas obviously you'll be looking into is getting a placement, or getting a job, so that you can put your skills to test, rather, in that sense, right? And in a way you can contribute to the society, you can contribute to your own personal development and so on, right? So what are some advices or recommendations from my end based on personal experience, right, which could help you in this process, right? So that's the second part of it. And the last part is, let's say, for any of those who are at jobs right now, who are working in placements, or who will be working in future in the IT industry, inshallah, right? Or anyone who's interested in IT industry and you go to work in the IT industry, what are some of the recommended areas to look into, or what are some of the advices which I can give you from experience in the same industry, is what we cover in the end today. All right. So those are the things we are going to look into in summary. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. Right. So I want to start with university, right? Because that's where all of us are right now, I guess, right? And so those are the areas I just want to mention a bit on the focus at university level, and what are the things to look towards, and so on. All right. So we'll start with that. Now, just a note on the questions, right? So we do have a Q&A session. Feel free to note down your questions. Just let me know anything you need to ask for, etc. At the end of this session, I'll try to make this quick so that you do have more time for questions, if any, right? And we'll try my best to answer any questions that there are, right? Okay, so the first part is about university. Now, so in this area, I just want to talk about a bit of focus, right? What are the areas you need to focus on so that you can be better adapted to the IT industry once you leave the university, right? And by no means this is something where I'm not saying you have to focus only on this area and everything else you should ignore, right? It's more about in a university you take a holistic approach, which means you focus on everything. You try to take in as much as you can so that you develop yourself. But there are some areas which you might have to give more attention to because it helps your future career and such, right? So the first one is this, right? Now, because you're in IT or the technology field, can we go back up to the previous slide? Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Right. So one of the focus areas which is important is obviously your technical subjects, right? Anything which is technical in nature is always going to be useful, even if you're in a field which is not IT, right? Let's say you decide to change later and so on, right? Anything you learn technically will come in useful at some area or the other, right? And especially more when you're in the IT industry. So that's an area of focus which you should always concentrate on, right? You might have, I've went through the same way. I might hate a certain subject or hate a certain technology and such because it's not much useful right now, or it's very difficult, etc. But just push through, right? It's a good focus area. Now, another thing which you can always, which I always advise everyone, is find out your areas of interest, which interest you from the subjects you have, right? Or anything else which might not be in the subjects but you're interested in technically, right? And look out for free courses online. Now, these are in websites like edX, Coursera, Udemy, etc. Right? Not only they give you a very good head start if you were to go into that area in future, right? But they also give you certifications in some cases, so that it's sort of at least a soft proof that you have some knowledge in this area, right? It gives you a good experience. I know it's more lectures, I guess, and you have UI lectures as well. Yeah, we understand that, but some of these are practical courses, and if you're interested in a certain area, why not give it a shot, right? And the reason you need to look into these at university level is so that it's because once you go into the job market in future, right? The more you progress there, the lesser time you might have for these things, because the job and your work later will keep you much more busier, right? More busy than the university, in fact. So when you have time, explore these other areas, free resources. It's very beneficial, right? And that also links to self-learning, which means you're interested in an area, just let's say the university offers an intro on it. We have many such cases, right? Where you might have introduction to accounting, introduction to programming, or such, right? The intro might not help you much in the real world. It might help you to get started, but you will need a good amount of information, knowledge in that area to actually, push through to survive in the job market and so on, right? So there's quite a bit of self-learning involved, right? The good part about self-learning is you can do it, in your area of interest. If something interests you, you can learn it your way, right? Download the resources you want, practice at your own time, right? And organize in your own manner right now. But it's important. It's something which you should focus on, right? Now, so in general, right, a university academic life will provide you so many opportunities and areas, right? Which helps you gain knowledge from many, many areas, right? The idea is you choose things which really interests you, right? Which you feel are also good for the market, and you go deeper into those areas through self-learning or other resources, all right? And that is quite important for the future. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay. Now, so this is something from my experience, right? I'm not even sure if some of these subjects exist right now, but back 10 years ago, right? The things which I taught in university were not so important, and sometimes I was not paying much attention to them. It turns out that once I'm in the job market, they are pretty important, right? So that's what I want to talk about a bit. It's on subjects which are memorable, right? And which you will somehow need in future, right? So if you notice my slide just now, if you're looking into, these are not, I've mentioned ICT as just one of the items over here. Most of the other subjects are not ICT related in many cases, right? And I just want to explain a bit on why that's the case, right? So first, it's just, yeah, so subjects which you need to, I wouldn't say focus on, but take attention, right? Consider their importance, take what you can from these subject areas, because they will help you in future, inshallah, right? Many people do underestimate the importance of the subjects. So here I am to tell you that, no, these are pretty important in one way or the other, right? So first is obviously your technical subjects. I mean, that's understood, right? Because you have a technical area you're interested in, you want to maybe work in the IT field or related to the IT field, it's good to have an interest in that technical area, right? So that's clear, right? Now, in UIA, and I'm pretty sure other universities also have it, there is a subject for, English communication in occupational settings, right? Back then, earlier, it was called English for occupational purposes. I'm not sure what it's called right now, but usually there is such a course like that. Now, that course or subject is extremely, extremely important, right? It's something which, and back in back in the day, it was a core subject. So I'm thinking, I'm not sure if it's core right now or not, but if you get a chance to take it, learn as much as you can from that subject, right? Because that subject teaches you language communication in an actual industrial setting, in an occupational setting, right? You will use it less in uni, in fact, right? You might almost not use it in the university at all, only besides the subject semester, right? But you will find a lot of benefit of that subject specifically when you leave university, all right? Because communication in a common language, internationally as well as locally, right, is very important, right? And the more you learn about this communication, the more you have experience in it, the better it makes you as a person who can communicate with anyone inside Malaysia, meetings from outside Malaysia, and so on, right? So subjects like these are something which prepare you for that, right? So it's a very important subject, and it's something good to take in from. Now, the other thing I want to mention is non-core subjects, which are sometimes part of your main subject area, right? So back in the uni, like my area was computer science, and we had courses like accounting sometimes, or some econs general courses and management, which are from econs Kulia and such, right? And we used to always think that, okay, what's the point of these courses? I want to focus on my IT course. The exam is difficult there, and I'd rather not spend time on accounting. I might not ever use it, etc. In some cases, it's true. You might end up not using it, right? But if there's a chance where you might end up using it, it immediately makes you as a very beneficial candidate wherever you are working, right? To have that knowledge, right? So in my example right now, the place where I started working, right? My background was just I started only with documentation, right? Just technical documentation. That is, I think, the documents which you might do in a system analysis and design subject in UIA, right? Like requirements document, or those UML diagrams and such. That was my area, and then I used to make a brochure or something like that for a small company, right? Now, when that company progressed and it grew, because a company is growing at a certain pace, it adds on other things, right? It's no longer you're only doing brochures or some small websites, for example. You might be also needing to do, some financial accounting, for example, right? Suddenly, there might be many people joining in the company, but if you're the one who is there from before, you might be involved in some kind of payroll, or you might be involved in, just doing monthly calculations of what we are spending on salaries and how our company is doing, etc. Right? In my case, that did happen. And when that happened, anything I learned in accounting back in UIA came in very helpful, right? So that's why, I mean, when you do a non-core subject, right, it could come in handy anytime. So I'm not saying that, give up on your tech subjects and try to get A in everything, but learn from it, right? Academic goal is one thing, but these non-core subjects, I think there's a reason they connected to, let's say, our core areas, right? When people think, hey, I'm doing IT, I don't need econ subjects right now. Why is it there? Why am I being forced to? There's a reason for it. And, in your industry, at some point or the other, depending on the situation, you might have a good need for it. And that knowledge which you might have gained earlier will help you, right? So another area of, just an experience I want to share. when I was introduced in this chat, I was introduced as a product development project manager, right? Which means in my company right now, I handle the management of products, which means if you have a new product and the lifeline of that product, the cycle, how we are going through the development of that product will be something which is managed by me, right? And we do a lot of software development. So any software we develop, any project we do, the project management is from my side, right? That is not a computer science area technically. All right, so my main area of work right now is actually from non-computer science subjects. Our company does a lot of computer science, which is other people who have done computer science, right? But my personal area, which now I have settled into, is not computer science in the sense. It's gotten a lot of benefit from non-core subjects, right? So accounting, management, econs, and such. So that's why I never underestimate those other courses, right? That's one of my advice, right? Now, languages. If you get opportunity to learn some language, right? And in many cases, it's usually sometimes stressful because, again, you're going through your main courses and you have a co-curricular, which is just a 0.5 credit, but you need to learn that. And, people might think, why should I learn this? And so on, right? Take as much as you can from those language subjects as well, right? Because the idea is wherever you're working in future, right? One of the aims one should always have, and every company has this, is that we'll try to, have customers or communication with people in this country as well as internationally, right? So the business grows, right? If you by any chance know certain languages besides English, right, that helps, right? That immediately puts you in the forefront of, communicating with, let's say, international clients, in case you're working in a company like that, right? One example is Arabic. So Arabic is a subject which is taught in UIA for co-curricular, I think. Last time, not even co-curricular, it was a 1 credit hour subject. So non-core, but you had to learn it. Arabic 1 and Arabic 2, if I remember correctly. Now, that subject, let's say you learn Arabic through that subject. If you did not know Arabic, now you know some Arabic, for example, right? Through that subject. Imagine your company is working here, for IT. It's also our case, right? And you might have 1 or 2 clients from Saudi Arabia, for example, right? Because they are trying to grow at a very good pace, so they need new websites, new web systems, etc. Right? If you're an IT company, you might come through a situation where you have clients from Saudi Arabia, let's say, for example, right? Now, if you have learned Arabic or you understand some of it, then communicating with clients overseas to Saudi Arabia or other Arab nations, for example, will help you a lot, right? So that's why learning languages is important, right? This is my advice also to internationals, right, and locals, everyone. If you're an international, learning the local language is also important, right? The subjects which you have, I think the UI still provides. It's good because then when you're in the job market, when you're at work, right, you just have more areas of communication, right? That makes you the front person when, let's say you're at your work, your boss or someone might choose you to communicate because you know more, right? People will understand you better, etc. So languages are important, right? Now, the last area which I want to touch is public speaking, right? If you're going in a field which does not involve, let's say, hardcore programming where you don't have to talk to people, if that's what your decision is, then that's also fine because we have people who work like that. That's totally fine, right? But if you're ever looking forward to going to a field where you might be handling meetings or talking to clients or talking internally, having more internal meetings and so on, public speaking is a must, right? So I'm not saying take a double degree in public speaking, right? But if you get the chance in co-curricular or anything else where public speaking is a choice, take it. It will give you benefits which you can't even imagine, right? It's even more important than some of the non-core areas, let's say, because how you speak confidently, right? In terms of clients or your teams, internally or externally, right? When you're working in the future in the industry, it matters a lot. And your confidence in speaking or running meetings or handling communication in the future will come from public speaking, right? So the more knowledge you have in that area, public speaking, languages, and so on, the more it will definitely help your field, right? There are some cases where one might be unsure that I'm not sure if it's going to help my field or not. And that's fine, because, unless you go to a specific technical area, you might not use something you learned in uni. But public speaking, you will always use it, right? So take good care of that area, right? And the final thing which I just want to mention is you might have some subjects, and this is in IT as well, which focus on ICT and Islam, right? Some religious aspect of ICT, etc. For us, Muslims, it's also very important that, some interest be paid in that subject, right? Because you will have lots of cases, or you might run into many situations in the real world, right? Where there are so many ways people could do wrong by mistake, for example, right? And so if you have a religious background in that sense, a spiritual background, where you know that something you're doing is helping people, or there's a reason to it, and so on. If you have that spiritual base, right, it helps make the right decisions, right? And it helps you feel at calm, etc. So it's good to also have interest in such subjects, right? It will help you in a proper decision making process in future, right? So yeah, those are some of the areas. Now the next slides I'll go faster, I promise, right? Because some of this base I had to set up, so I had to take some time and so on, right? Can we have the next one, please? Thanks. Okay, right. So just to quickly go through some other words of advice at your university life, right? Areas which are also really important in university besides just the academic or the studies, right? So I just want to go through some of these. Now, first is certifications. There are many cases in UIA in the past, and even now you might have opportunities where you might attend something and you might get a certification, right? Or you might be having a short course over some weekends where you might get a certificate from Microsoft. Sometimes there are such programs, right? Or you might have opportunities to get some good certifications, maybe at a discount because you're at a university level and so on. Take those opportunities, because these certificates, especially like, let's say if you're a certified database administrator, for example, right? Those kind of things will help you. They will directly help you have a benefit at jobs when you're applying, right? Because in many cases, people look at other things or other certifications you might have besides just the university degree and so on. So those are important, right? Now, tools and techniques. And this applies for technical as well as non-technical areas, right? What I mean here is, in your university life, you will come across using a lot of software. And I'm not only talking about Microsoft Word. That's very common. Everyone uses it. It's not taken as a benefit anymore. It's taken as a given. You should know how to, if you know how to work a computer, you should know Office-related software. That's fine, right? But I'm talking about, let's say I spoke of an area like system analysis and design, right? If you're into that area, technical diagrams in IT, for example, there are so many UML diagram-related software, right? Besides the one which is taught in class, there are many others which might do some things better, right? If you're into programming, there are so many, even normal text editors, which are so widely used. Some are less used, some are more used in the industry, right? To get to know these things so that you're proficient in more than one tool or technique in your area, right? The reason is when you join the workforce in future, definitely in some way or the other, you will be using tools which the company uses, right? The more you're proficient in learning tools or in knowing different tools of your trade, right? In terms of software specifically, the easier you can, fit in to the work you're doing, and the easier you can learn there, the faster you can develop in that area, right? So you can start on some of the softwares and so on from now, right? A bit on grades. So I just wanted to speak on this as well. Back in the day when we were graduating, and even some in our, I'm pretty sure some of the parents also even advise kids these days, right? If they haven't seen the new the way the work works, the work field works, right? Is that people have this tendency to feel that, look, if I get a higher CGPA and so on, right, I should be getting the best job, right? By that logic, let's say if you get a 4 CGPA, you'll only be happy if you work in Google or Microsoft, because everything else is not worth it. Why are you getting a lower job since you got a 4 CGPA? People sometimes have that thinking, right? So I just want to mention, right? So the truth about this is, and in the job market, sooner or later you will learn this, right, is that while the grades and the CGPA does help you, right, it helps your first and second job only in most cases, right? Because when you go for your first job, you don't have much experience. Your experience is the university, right? So people want to know, what do you call it? How you have performed there, right? How are your activities at the university? What are your strong subject areas and so on, right? So in your first job, maybe in your second job, your grades and so on do play a part. After that, they don't. In most cases, they won't. Then only what you do at your job, the experience you have gotten will play the bigger part, right? So while grades are important, it is really good to, get those high CGPAs, and so on. Please also look into learning things which you get the high CGPA for, right? It's also important, right? If you have an opportunity where you're learning by experience and, you're learning more from a subject, right? So that it helps you at the market in future, right? In the industrial area. And because of that, you're getting slightly lesser CGPA, not a problem, right? Your experience is what will dictate your future development more than your grades. And that's something which, I guess we all should know, right? So that's just a special mention there. Sorry, right. A few of the things on what matters most at university level, right? Some other quick focus areas. As I mentioned, communication. Communication is extremely important, right? Your communication with your peers, with your lecturers, with your supervisors when you're doing a research course, etc. Your ability to network with people, to know people, will help you, right? It will help you at university level. It will help you in future, right? It could be things like, let's say you're working in a company and your friend whom you communicated well with in the university is working in another company, and then you guys could do projects together, for example, right? So things like that. Communication is really important. Never underestimate it. Try your best, right? I know some people are introverts, some are extroverts. It's not a strong suit for everyone universally, but try wherever you can to have that level of communication which helps you, right? Now, the other area is time management, right? Extremely also important, right? So by time management, I mean even at university level, and this is important, right? It's not always about studies. I get it, right? Everyone does want the higher grades and so on, right? But always try to manage your time in the best manner possible so that you are also doing activities which you like, your hobbies, or what you like to do extra time. It could be gaming. I mean, that was my thing when I was at university, right? Or hang out with people, etc. It's okay, right? But try to keep a good time management between your work as well as your playtime. Let's call it that, right? It is important. It helps you balance out your time management in future as well, right? Then more on communication, group work, any of the group projects you do in university where you communicate at group in group work is also very important, right? As you mentioned, co-curricular subjects, anything extra you do, right, is also important. Try to take what you can, which might help your area, right? Internship placement. So I just want to spend a minute talking about this, right? Now, internships are really important in the sense that, especially in UIA, many internships used to be 6 months, right? And that gives your potential employer, it could be a potential employer, wherever you're working, right, a really good experience on how this person is to work with, what are their strengths, weaknesses, their skills, right? In many cases, this internship can also be your full-time job later on, right? So never underestimate your internship in that sense. Pay close attention to it, right? Do good at internship, look forward to them, right? It's a very important aspect of a university life. Take as much benefit as you can from it, right? I would also say don't settle for free internships and so on. People should not do that anymore. I agree with that, right? So many people will say, look, it's enough that you're getting to learn, so we won't pay you anything. Those are bad. Those are red flags for a company, I will say, right? But I mean, a perfect balance of you getting good experience and also, allowances for it and so on is always good. Strive for those, right? Take as much benefit as you can from those. So one of our staff at my company, right? At our company, this person used to be an intern. He's from a different university, not UIA, right? He worked with us for 3 months initially. This is in 2012, all right? And after that, I think he went to find job elsewhere, etc. Right, and then he joined our company back. Now, only because of the internship, we knew his quality of work, we knew how well he works, and we knew what he was good at. Right, to the point that our company hired him back because of the internship experience only. Right, uh, even his interview was almost short and not the usual one because we already knew the person from internship. Right, um, and he's with us to this day. He's working on projects which are even international, and the amount he has developed over 10 to 12 years, right, is a lot. And all that happened only because of the internship, right? To the point that some of the projects we did with this person in internship, we are using it to even showcase to clients now, sometimes to demo to people, etc. Right? So internship is really, really important. Pay attention to those things. Right. Okay. And also, have a good, I guess, think about it on the area which you need to go for, right? Do you need to go for research area or coursework area when you're doing your further studies, right? That's important because if you're interested in areas like research and so on, you need to have certain expectations from the industry, or at least the industry you're going to be working in, right? In many cases, people who go ahead and do PhD and so on, right, will also end up in the academic field, which is excellent, right? But there's a very big difference between academics and industry, right? We have seen people we have worked with people who are PhD, etc., and they do struggle at the industry level, right? So it's important to at least have expectations based on your study track, right, from the industry. Okay, so just to give this importance, the industry life and the academic life is very different when it comes to your future development, as and which starts with coursework or the research decision, right? So do take those into account, right? Now, so all this, the idea is this, right? At university level, it doesn't have to be first year, it can be second year or third year, etc., right? Try to have sort of an end goal for you of which area you're going into or where you are pursuing at the end of your 4 years in university, right? Or at the end of your master's, right? And anything you do in the university after you have set up your goal or after you have thought about it should feed into that goal, right? So that's the main strategy, right? If your goal is to become a software developer or full stack developer, for example, right? You will still have to take all the subjects like your friends, right? But try to take benefit from everything you do in the university to see how that helps your area in future. In most cases, it won't help you at university level in a long sense because everyone is busy with the grades and trying to finish the subjects and so on. But try to see whatever you do at university, how does it help you in future, right? And this is about me telling you how the areas which you might think might not help you will also help you in future. So always have that at the back of your mind, right? Whatever you're doing at the uni level, how does it help you in future? Where does it contribute? And wherever it contributes, you take that from that subject you're studying, right? And that part is really, really important. Okay, so that's up to the university level. I want to quickly go through the job market and some work tips and so on. And I'm guessing you're approaching sort of the in a few, I think in 10 minutes or something, we might be approaching the end of this talk as well, right? So I'll try to hurry up through some of the other areas. Now, I want to talk a bit on job hunting, right? And then the workplace. So let's have the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. Now, when you're job hunting, or let's say you have taken everything from the university you can, and you're in the market, you're looking for jobs, right? You're looking for a future and so on, right? So this is just an advice, right? Now, what are the areas you look into at the university level, academically, or technically from your kuliah, right? Which might help you at certain job types in future, right? Now, if you're looking for a technical job, which means programming or infrastructure design, networking, and those kind of things, right? The jobs over here will be something like programming and development, UX, UI, as I said, networking, infra design, right? Or any other technical team leadership, right? That's one of the areas you're going to be looking into. It's a separate area as opposed to non-technical, right? A non-technical job area is something where you might not be using programming all the time or a lot of technical stuff, right? Which many people like, other people are not so good at, for example. That's fine. And if you're going into the non-technical field in IT, right? You still have so many other opportunities, things like system analysis and design. Those are the subjects you will really have to look into. Project management, information organization such as library management and so on, right? You will also be able to do non-technical stuff like tools and training. There's such a big market for people who are specializing in certain software, right? Who can train other people in different companies, right? We have a few IT companies who do only training, which means there are trainers over there who are really paid well, who are very experts in their field, but they don't know programming, right? So you have very good, area of non-technical items you can do as well outside the university, right? And finally, also marketing. Marketing is more towards econs, I get that. But the reason I mentioned marketing in the IT field is this, right? When you're into IT and you need to market or you need to do some sort of marketing for the IT field, right? You will be able to, impart information to people, your recipients of your marketing, much more than anyone from econs could do, for example, right? The reason being that if you're in IT, you know the IT aspects of whatever you're, promoting or marketing, right? And that will really help, right? So I'll give you a quick example. I was recently, just at the machines shop in some mall. That's the shop which, the store which sells iPhones and iPads and so on, right? Now, there were a few very similar looking machines. The specs are very similar, right? There's only one or two small differences. But if you ask anyone in that store at that point, right, and if they are of a non-technical background, they will actually not be able to tell you the difference. They might say something like, this one is more powerful, but they don't know why, right? That's also marketing. For the one who is non-technical, they'll say, okay, more powerful, I'll buy this, for example, right? Between the two laptops or MacBooks. Now, if you're a technical person, right, and you're marketing a product, for example, you will exactly be able to tell the difference between different products. Why? Because you know technical stuff like maybe the processor frequency or RAM and those kind of things, right? How many cores is this laptop versus that laptop and so on. But this is just a technical example, right? In your area, in your software area, or if you're making software in future, right? If you're from IT and then you join marketing because that's your area of interest, IT related marketing, you will have much more information and you have a niche area which you can, concentrate on, right? So don't think that marketing is only for econs, people, etc. If you're into IT and you can do a special form of IT related marketing, and that has its advantages as well, right? Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so some other advice from experience, and recommendations when you're looking for job hunting, right? Now, the first thing which I mentioned, right, which I already mentioned in the university slide, is the correlation people make between academics and job position you get, all right? So this is very similar to, hey, I got a 4 CGPA, how come I'm in this company as a junior? Why can't I join in directly as a senior, right? In most cases, that won't happen, right? Unless you have contacts and so on. Or there are some rare cases where, Google approaches you or something. But the idea is that, you have to stop thinking between a direct correlation between grades and what you get in the job place, right? Experience has a lot to play with it. There's always a ladder sort of progression, right? When you join something new, people don't know much about you, right? So that's why you will always be joining, in many cases, at a junior level, let's say, or as a mid-level. And that is fine. You don't want to join at a high level and suddenly there's so much work on you and you don't have time to train yourself or time to slowly learn things and get better, right? So if you're job hunting and if it's your first job, if you're joining as a company new, but from a junior or really sub-junior level, that's totally fine, right? That's actually good because by the time you grow into the senior level, you will know much more than someone who knows little. They suddenly join the senior level. Yes, you get high pay, but your life will be really stressful, right? Because you'll always be worried about what I don't know as a manager. People are looking up to me and so on, right? So do keep that in mind. Now, the other common mistake which many people make is waiting for the perfect job. All right. So that's something like Okay, my specific area is Java programming. I learned in uni, right? I have to get a Java job where I can do Java programming. If I don't get it, it's useless. I don't want to waste time in another job which is IT but not Java specifically, right? People have that mentality sometimes, and I think that's a very narrow way to look into things, right? So I'll give an example. Currently, I'm a project manager at an IT company. We do software, so it's fully IT, right? But when I started, even before the brochure thing, which I just mentioned, right? My 3 years of job market was actually schools. It wasn't anything uh, programming or system analysis or design, etc. at all. I was actually a teacher in some international schools, right? Uh, Now, you might get such opportunity sometimes, right? The job market is difficult, right? You will not always get the exact job or the exact specification you want, right? But the idea is, it is always better to have some work as opposed to no work, right? That is very important. You need to be getting experience from somewhere so that your future work becomes better, your future job hunting becomes better, right? So in my example, which I was giving, the teaching at school, well, I ended up teaching IT. First, I started teaching math, but then ended up teaching IT, right? Um, Now, teaching IT for 2 years gets me some sort of experience into what software the students or the school uses, right? And because you're in the IT department or teaching in the IT department, right? It gets you more about the in and outs of the software the school uses, right? How did I use that in future? So when I joined the IT company, I can approach that school as as a vendor and tell them that I know a bit about your software because I've used your software, and our company does better educational software. Why don't you have a look at our software, right? And so in future, the school which I was working at became our clients, or one of our clients, whom we were pitching better products to. And how do I know they are better products? Because I used their other product from before, right? We have had cases even where our company has done websites and other systems for UI itself, right? Why? Because we know some of the systems UI use, and we understand the requirements well, right? So we can come and pitch for some better solution if there's an opportunity, right? So that's why never underestimate that you're looking for a job and you're not getting the perfect job which you need, and so therefore you'll keep on searching for years. It's always better to get something, maybe remotely related, or at least you're working in some manner, getting some experience which you can use in future, right? So aim for that. Never be disheartened where you don't get the exact specification of your job initially, because initially the first job is always difficult. Try to take as much as you can from it, just like university, and then progress in future accordingly, right? So in my case, for example, the school, I started to teach IT, and because that's my field, right? And that's how I made use of it in the industrial area when I joined an IT company, right? That's just one example. You could always, start with some other job, which you got easily. Yeah, just take something from it which helps your future field, and then progress ahead. But never be disheartened with not getting the exact specification of a job, right? Now, so yeah, that's what the second point over here speaks about, right? That you connect any work you do to your area of interest, and then that way you build a pathway to your progress, right? Final thing over here. Now, what many people overlook when you're looking for jobs, all right? So I'll give you two examples, and think about this, right? So let's say when you're applying for jobs, you apply to Job Street, many companies, and so on, right? On the one hand, you might have a really big company from KL Central, right? And people know them by name, so that's an excellent company and so on, right? But because you're junior level, you might still get a job there, and it's a good job. There's a lot of hours to put in, right? It's stressful, and one of the benefits the company mentions is that like many big companies have these days, right? We have like beds in our office or bean bags or something, and people can rest here. They will make environments where you can live easily. You don't even have to, you won't miss home, because the company has things which will provide you with all those amenities and benefits, right? So that's one side of things. Now imagine there is a medium company which is very good for a start, for example, right? And you have a chance to join that company as well, right? Let's say, and this company might not have big benefits like bean bags or pool tables at the office and those kind of things, right? But because they are a medium company, they might say, one of the things we can give you is, we can't give you so many amenities because our offices are small, for example, but we can give you flexi time, right? Because we are a small company, we have less things to answer currently. We are still growing, but you can have flexi time where you can work 3 days from home, 2 days from the office, something like that, right? And I'm talking non-COVID situation. Imagine a non-COVID situation where the company still allows you to work from home or gives you flexi timing. That fine, you're a programmer, you can work in the morning or evening, as long as you work 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, for example, right? Now, so the idea what I'm telling you is never ever underestimate looking for such a job, right? You have no idea how important and how good it is to have something like flexi time, right? And one of the things which I have noticed even through some interviews I did in the past for other companies when I was applying, and people who I've talked to in such companies, right, some of the big ones, they say, those companies which have bean bags and sleeping areas in the office and those kind of things, right? They say, yes, they have all these facilities, right? But the idea is people are expecting that you spend most time at work, which means you have less family time, you have less time to go back home, right? It's like you're stuck at something. Well, the office has beds, you can just rest here, no point going home. And 12-hour work shifts are very common and so on, right? Now, you might think that's okay when I start with, but if you start with something like this, that becomes your norm. People will start thinking, hey, this person can work 12 hours. Why should we make him work only 5 hours in the new company? We have got someone who we can, work 12 hours for. And that's a disadvantage. It'll just stress you out in future. And that's something you need to really, think about, right? Personally, in my case, like currently, even in the company I work in, flexi time, we don't have big offices. In fact, we just have a co-working space. We don't even have a rented office, right? So one of the biggest things we have a lot is flexi time. Even before COVID and so on, we had work from home and those kind of things. And we have so many people working in our company who have got better jobs, but they say flexi time helps. So as long as there's flexi time, I'll stay in this company. Some even stay for lesser pay. Why? Because the flexi time and the way it helps you is extremely, extremely important, right? I'll speak a bit more about this in my last slide after this. So yeah, but do see and think about the differences, yeah, of what you're getting from the job besides the money, in terms of time, how much time you're saving for yourself, for your family, and those kind of things, right? Okay, so can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Right, so the final portion of our, talk today, right? When you're in the job field or when you're working, right? Working towards learning, impressing, surviving, and developing, right? So these are the 4 areas you usually face or you should look for when you're working, in the market or in the industry, right? What this means is wherever you're working, what do you learn from there, right? What are the skills you pick up? You need to look towards those, right? What can you do to impress the people around your workplace? And this is important because very few of us will directly join a job where you're already the CEO or something, right? Which means there's always something to impress at work. And that is important because that's how development happens, right? That's how even the survival portion happens. So survive means, you need to look towards opportunities, or you need to have a plan in mind in future, inshallah, right? Which helps you survive the job market, right? Which gives you the least amount of time where you're away from any work, looking for work, etc. Right? The focus is you are doing some work and you're developing somewhere. So, and that's where development also comes in, right? So these are the 4 goals which you should always have wherever you are working, right? What are you learning from it? What can you do with your skills and your nature, right? To impress and to give a good impression to those who will also decide your future promotions and those kind of things, right? And when you have those things, you will be surviving well at the job market and at your workplace, and you will develop, really well, right? Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. So guys, just give me like a 1 minute. My laptop is just running out of battery or something, so I just want to attach the power cable. Just give me a minute, yeah. Right. Hi, everyone, again. Just turn this on. Okay. Yeah, we are back. Sorry for that. Sorry, just a minute more. Just give me a minute. Right. Okay then. Sorry for the slight interruption. I was just charging the laptop. I had forgotten to do that earlier. Okay. So the last I think 1 or 2 slides left, or 1 or 2 areas I need to speak on. Right. So one is yeah. So this is I just want to talk a bit about the type of fields you go into, right, at your workplace, or the type of jobs you go into, and what kind of personality traits you need to have to do well there, right, or to learn or to succeed in that job, in the future, and so on. So right, so one of the types is the non-technical area, right? So let's say if you're working towards project management, system analysis, and design related fields, technical documentation, and those kind of things, right? So you're at a job which does not require a lot of programming, but so many other aspects of IT which are equally, if not more important, right? So if you're in such a job, or if you're looking to pursue such a job or area in future, right, what are some of the recommended qualities, if you have, which will help you? So it's not something like a list where if you don't have 2 things, you can never apply to that job. I'm not saying that, right? But it's more like if you have these personality traits, they will help you a lot, right? It might make things easier for you, inshallah, right? So the first thing, if you're in an area which is not completely technical, which does not involve you just sitting on a PC and programming, which is the bread and butter of most companies, by the way. So that's extremely important, right? But if that's not your area, which means you will be expected to have some personalities like being an extrovert a bit, right? Because if you're not into programming, let's say, then many software companies will put you in an area where you're actually talking with people, right? Which means you need to be liking those kind of things, talking with people, sitting for long meetings, for example, sometimes, those kind, right? And that also brings me to the next thing. You need to be talkative enough, right? If you have a slightly talkative personality and you're in a project management area, right? You can do things like meetings or presentations and those kind of things easily, right? So you should be free, or you should be liking the idea of talking to people, right? Now, the other area which is good is improvisation and creativity. Okay, so if you're in an area which is non-technical, right? You're in for meetings and so on. You will come across situations which are sometimes difficult, right? I don't know, a client or someone might ask you a question which you don't have a direct answer for, right? Or they might ask you, hey, does your company do this? And you might not know exactly because of less technical knowledge, which is fine, right? So the idea is that, right, improvisation and creativity comes in where if you have not prepared for a certain talk, right, and you're meeting someone, right, how quickly you can improvise and talk about things which you have not prepared for. All right, that part is important, right? Because not every meeting or every presentation or every such communication in your work life will be always pre-planned, and not every of these things you will have several days to plan, right? So you should be in a habit of, if you're in this area, of, let's say, with minimal to no preparation, if I'm just walking into a meeting or into a presentation, do I have enough to say or talk about, right? So that's one area which is important. Team mentality. So if you're, and this applies for every job, but specifically if you're into something like a team lead, project management, right? This is where actually literally handling teams, yeah? So you need to have a team mentality. You need to have skills where you need to make sure that no member of your team which you're handling feels left out, right? Or no one is unhappy in your project team, those kind of things, right? And we have already spoken about how important public speaking and presentation skills are, right? So obviously, if you're in a field which requires you to speak to people or in meetings, etc., public speaking is important, right? Teaching and training is an area which is also important, right? So if you're in a project management situation in future, that's just an example, right? Or any other such non-technical area. Inshallah, when you continue working in the same area or in the same company, you will be developing, right? You might join in as a junior, system analyst. Then in future, you might become a senior system analyst, then a technical team lead of system analysts, right? Whenever that happens and whenever your situation improves at your job place, which means the company is growing and they might be adding more juniors who will be kind of training under you, right? So that way you need to have enough skills, or at least the ability or a slight passion for teaching, so that when you are a senior and you have other juniors in the company, you can impart this knowledge to them, right? So that your team grows, right? So that part is important. That also connects to leadership. If you're in an area where you're leading people, you're a team lead, you're a project lead, those kind of thing, then people will look towards leadership qualities from you, right? And this one can be a cliche one. You can go online, search Google for good leadership qualities, try to adopt some of those skills, try to see how they apply to your life, but get to know those things. Yeah, those are important. Now, another thing which I want to specially mention, if you're in an area where you're leading people in future, right, you will need lots and lots and lots of patience, right? Because anytime you're at a leadership role, you are expected to behave and conduct yourself in a certain manner, right? And in many times it might not be possible. People might drive you crazy because you might have, let's say, people you're working with in your team who are not good, for example, right? You might want to scream at them on the inside, but you can't do that, right? So you need to have a good level of patience to patiently deal with things, right? And make everything into a teaching moment and stuff like that. And finally, as I mentioned, even language skills are important, right? If you know more than one language, it helps you when you're doing meetings and when you're meeting people, etc. Right. The other end of the spectrum, technical area, right? So if you're a technical person who's not doing meetings and project management as his main job, you might be involved in certain things, but your main area is technical. You're doing apps development, you're doing amazing work like making web systems and learning new technology and so on, right? So what kind of other personality traits might suit you, in the sense that if you like these things, your area and job becomes easier? All right, again, these are not mandatory items, but they definitely make a difference. So first, if you're an introvert, and many people are, there's no it's nothing wrong, right? Some people are introverts and some are extroverts. If you're an introvert, then this type of working job will help you out, right? Because you're fine with going hours without talking, because you need that focus to do your technical work, which is amazing, right? So that's also a personality trait. If you have it, don't fret. There is an area for you which you will benefit there, right? If you're technical in nature, you think a lot about technical things, right? Because people in management, I include myself in this, sometimes we don't see the technical aspects of items, right? We might have more like goals and functional things. We might have bigger items to talk about. We need people, right, who know about the technical nitty-gritty of everything, right? So if you're into a technical field and if you have a technical background and interest, that helps, right? If you're mathematical in nature or calculative, right? Because whatever you're working on, the people are expecting, and they have certain expectations from you in a technical field, that this person is mathematical enough that they will find out the best solutions of problems, technical problems, right? Any software this person is making will be efficient because they have a creative mind to think about the efficiency. Then that will help you, right? So that's where even creativity links in. Team mentality over here is also very important, right? Very seldom you might be working in future also, even if you're a junior, it's very rare you will ever be working on something alone. You'll always have a team with you in most cases, right? Group of programmers or a team lead with the programmer and a system analyst in an IT field, for example. So it's always good to have the team mentality to see that you fit well in a team, you address everyone's needs well, and you know what people like and don't like. You can communicate well on what you like and don't like, or are you comfortable with. That will help you out, right? Now, teaching and training comes here as well for the same reason, right? Any field you're in, inshallah, you'll be a senior in some years, if you stick to the same job or the field and so on. Whenever you're a senior, you need to have enough knowledge or enough way to teach and train, because there will be juniors joining. You need to train them. That's a very common thing in the job market. So it's always good to be prepared for such, right? Language skills, the other kind. This is just, if you're in technical, if you have good language skills for, I don't know, PHP, Java, Python, those kind of things, that's good, right? So if you have those skills a lot and that's what you have learned in university, that's what you like, sure, go for a technical field, right? Because you will always have a benefit as opposed to someone who does not like these things. Yeah. And finally, if you're someone who is able to work flexi hours, so this is important, right? And I think it's more about which country you're working. But let's say, from my experience, development or software development programmers in this country, for example, because that's where I've worked all these years, you might have many situations where you're needed after 10 p.m. I don't know, to watch a server, or some server went down, you're into networking, someone needs you to quickly go and bring the server back up, etc. So if that's something which really bothers you and you can never ever be expected to work after a certain time or replace your time with flexi hours, etc., then it's better to shy away from that field a bit, because in many cases, unfortunately, that's an expectation, right? Because imagine you're browsing a website, right? And that's usually made by people. You know how we have subject add drop in UIA, or you have your iTalim and those kind of things, right? Imagine it's an important test you want to do in iTalim and the system is down at night. Maybe you are planning to finish and submit something at night. You as a user will hate it, right? Because you will be like, look, now's my time to submit as a student, but the system is not working. You might get angry that, hey, we need someone to bring the system up, right? And the only way this system of yours which you're using can come up is someone who is working in IT at iTalim side has to be, attentive at night, right? When you are working, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock sometimes, right? To bring the server up so that you have a good experience, right? So that's the reality of the IT industry, right? If you're into technical field, it is something you should expect to a certain extent. Now, depending on the company, you will have good companies who use this well, and there are bad companies who misuse this. And this you will only learn from experience, right? But that's an important area. Now, can I have the next slide? I think my last 2 slides are the coming ones. I promise it'll finish soon. Right. So a bit on workplaces of the present and the future, right? What areas are important or things you should look into at the workplace, all right, when you join one? Right. So as I mentioned earlier, any work you do, connect it to your area of interest, right? And that's how you develop in your area, right? If it's something which you feel is not in your area, take something from that work which will help you in your area and use it, right? And that's going to help you develop in your area faster, right? Now, when coming to the workplace, right, some snippets of advice which will be really helpful for you in future, inshallah, right? As we mentioned, communication and skills, very important, right? You need to have good communication skills so that you can communicate whether technically or non-technically at your workplace, right? And then you need to have those skills itself so that people will take you seriously, right? So let's say if I'm a project manager who does not like speaking and who doesn't know how to manage people, people are not going to take me seriously as a project manager, right? So I need to have enough skills in my area, right? So that I can be taken seriously at my job, right? So that part is important. Now, you need to have this quality of individual work as well as teamwork, right? As I said, in many cases, you'll always be working on teams, but there are cases where you have to work on your own, right? You might have to, like the example I just mentioned, you're in the IT team. It's 12 o'clock at night. Most people are sleeping. You're the only one awake and you need to save the system, right? That's individual work. So you need to be good at that and you need to be okay with it as well, right? Now, you need to have reasonable social expectations when you join the workplace. What does this mean? I will say this is for a better social life, right? Have have enough on you to separate between work colleagues or work friends and others, right? This is important because you need that as well. You need friends who are not in your workplace, right? So that you have this other social life where you can unwind, you can, talk to them about your experiences. They are in a different workplace, but you have something else in common, which is not work, right? That is very important. So don't underestimate that. Have friends which are not at your workplace, even when you're working in future, right? So differentiate between work friends and non-work friends. That is very important, right?
Excuse me, Brother Harun. We have another 10 minutes before Q&A session.
Okay, sure.
So, yeah, all right.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, is this slide and the next one, I think so. Yeah, just those. I'll try to hurry up. Thanks. Right. Okay, so that's about social experiences, right? Yeah. Now, one thing which which I would advise everyone. So, if you're ever going into a management field in future, or you're part of a company where you decide on management related items or meetings, etc., right? Please try your best, to build that difference at a place you work, right? To know that meetings is something which could be a huge time waster, as well as something which could be a time saver. All right, know the difference, and this is something I'm telling from personal experience in UI as well, right? Start developing the skill from university itself. So I'll give you examples, right? When I was back in the Kulia and we had ICT subjects, there used to be a lot of group work, towards the final year, especially in masters. And if there are group work where I'm not the team lead, for example, depending on the subject, right? So sometimes they will have team leads who will say, okay, we need to work on this, so let's meet on Sunday, for example, but let's have a 5-hour meeting where we work together, etc. Right? Such a thing is very unproductive, even in the normal in the workplace in future, right? You might have many situations at the workplace where you will be forcing people to join meetings, but internally they never like it, right? There is a huge amount of research in this area that meetings are never good in the sense if they are not done properly, right? So that's one of the most important things as you join the workforce in future, right? Communication is one thing, but effective communication, which is short and sweet, right, and which is efficient, is also very important, right? Many companies waste, almost half of their lifetime in wasteful meetings. It's an area I'm passionate about. I don't like meetings in that sense, right? I make it known at my workplace, but it's something you guys should also work towards. Anyone who's following this advice, right? And you can start from university. Try to have efficient meetings on things. Long meetings are never good meetings, right? Make things efficient, and that's what will help you at your workplace as well, right? Now, the other point I just want to mention is you got to be prepared that you will meet people with all levels of experience in future, right? Experience and skills. And that depends on the company, the place where you work at, etc. You might be an expert in a certain field, right? And your senior might not be an expert in that field. You might have learned the best practices of certain, let's say, programming in the world via your course, right? And then you'll be surprised this company does not use the best practices. But if you let that demotivate you, then almost, at least from experience here, 95 to 98% of the jobs you will find demotivating, right? In most cases, people take a lot of time to, go and learn everything by standards and do it properly. You will not find it very easily, right? So the idea is prepare yourself to adjust to the pace and the technology of the company you're going to work with, right? And you can use the areas which are standards where you can control them, right? So if I'm a project manager, I'm only project manager now. In the last 5 years of my life, right? 5 to 7. Before that, I was not. When I was not a project manager, I never had a control on what the company uses. I have to learn it, right? Now that I'm a project manager, I can make change. The idea is you should also think on those grounds, right? So don't be unhappy with, you will find areas unexpected, I will say, that many of these industries and companies you work on will never follow the standards which you learn at your school, in the courses, right? they'll take time, and in many cases those standards are not followed. Be prepared for that, I would say that, right? Now, another quick tip, and this is important, right, when you work on future, right, is that always be and this you can start preparing from the university itself, right? Always plan or try to plan the best manner for your free time or free days as well as working days, right? When you do that well at a company in future, you can plan your leaves and holidays better, right? In many cases, and this is the sad reality, you will have lots of leaves. In big companies, they'll say, hey, you have 21 days leaves a year, right? But no one's going to force you to take those leaves. Unfortunately, in many cases, people will, hope, hey, I hope this person never takes a leave so that we get more productivity and everyone works more. But you're a human. You need your rest time as well, right? So always keep that at the back of your mind and plan your rest time, right? Plan it in such a way that you have enough time for yourself, your family, sorry, and your work. So that is very, very important, right? Just a minute, sorry. Okay. Final point here. You have to truly learn to embrace the new work style, which is working from home. Luckily, in our industry, that's very easy, right? We don't have much of a problem working from home because a lot of our work does happen with technology, online, like this talk itself, right? Learn to like it because it will benefit you, right? It saves so much time, makes one so much efficient. It will always help you out, right? Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, all right. So yeah, a bit on time off work, right? So as we have talked about a lot, and I've paid special attention to, right? Use your flexi time well. Use your holidays well, all right? Always look towards personal development. Always look towards what you can do at your free time. And by free time, I don't even mean, hey, you have to use your Saturday, Sunday to learn something new. No, right? Your Saturday, Sunday could be spent on just going out to a holiday with family or going to the movies. Use it well, right? Because if you don't use your free time well, to especially do the things which you like for fun, for example, right? You will have that sort of fatigue and burnout at work, right? So I highly recommend, anytime I work with even any team, etc., I almost force them to take leaves, right? And to plan the leaves well, because free time is important, right? And then the final item, sorry, just a minute, yeah. Okay, your responsibilities towards your work in future, right? And this is something you should prepare for from now. So the first thing is, as I said, effective and humble leadership, right? And why is that important? I've seen personally in my life many cases where you might have colleagues, they are with you, studying with you, and friends, etc. But once they become leaders at a company, and you're not, for example, there is the loss of humbleness. Many people are like, oh, I'm the boss, now I can do anything I want, and stuff like that. Always have that duty towards your fellow brothers and sisters, right? So that you can be an effective and humble leader if you ever get the chance to, right? Never abuse your position in that sense, right? That is very important. Now, the other thing is your duties towards your brothers and sisters, right? Always be ready to help. There are so many of you who might get jobs easily in future. I hope, inshallah, everyone does, right? But some might not, and some work on job via references, right? So you might have, be working in a company and you have a chance to refer to one of your brother or sister so that they can also get easily into this company. Use those chances, right? We all know, and we have been through cases in life where, let's say, finding a job or finding a placement into anything is difficult. For some people it is easy, for some it is difficult, right? For you, if it is easy, right? And if you can make it easier for someone else, Always do that, right? Because that's one of the best advices I'll give you. Make it easy for other people if you have the power and the chance to do that. Yeah. Right. Okay. So the other thing is just, it's your duty to also make sure that you, avoid any kind of conflicts at the workplace, right? Between yourself and people, etc. Always be the best version of yourself at the workplace, right? And that's also one of the things which the ICT and Islam subject connects to, right? You need to be a best version of yourself anywhere you go at your workplace, so that people look at you and say, okay, you know what? People from UI, they are amazing. They understand these things better. They do things well. That's the aim you should always, go towards, right? And so the idea is that if you ever get a chance to work with your peers, always welcome that chance, grow together, right? And inshallah help other people grow. Can we have the final slide, please? This is the exact final slide, yeah, I promise. And then after that, it's over. Okay, so what does the future hold, right, in this industry? So, by the time you finished, let's say, university, and what's coming up for the future, at least from experience of people who are working right now, we can see this, right, is a lot of automation. There are literally fields where, things which people used to do, now machines are doing it, right? Or things which people used to do manually, now software is doing it. So if one does not adopt to those things, they might find themselves in a difficult position at the job itself, right? So be ready for that. Be ready for change, and adopting the automation, trying to work with it, trying to know skills which helps in the automation. That will put you in the lead in your workplace, right? Now, the other thing, tools and technology software. This is important. This is something which changes every year, every month, right? Always be in touch with the new tools and technology out there, right? So that you can use them for your benefit and use them in future in your jobs as well as in your studies right now, right? There might be some software which you really like, but now it's being replaced by something new. Maybe next year that gets replaced by something even new, right? Even though you might not like a certain software initially, always have your best, try your best to learn these things. This will definitely help you in future, because in many places, the old tech gets replaced with new, and you need to know the new tech, right? So you can perform better, you can fit better into the workplace, right? And then the final thing is also what I feel personally the future holds is a lot of working from home. Get used to that and like it, because there are so many benefits from working from home that, it's always better. I feel it's always better in that sense. In industries where, you can do it easily, like IT, it's always better. So embrace it truly, try to work towards it and expect this in future. Especially because of pandemic, now many people are realizing we save so much time working from home. So you see some companies are like, we are going to do work from home forever, right? I think many of the companies who might have realized the benefits of work from home, online meetings, might take this normal even after the pandemic is over. Yeah. So that's something you need to prepare for. You need to get used to. And I think if managed well, you will even start liking it if you don't already. Yeah. I think that's all. With that, we come to the end of the talk from my end, right? Thanks, everyone, for listening and for giving me the opportunity to, share my experience and, share some tips with you. Hope this was helpful for you all. I'm guessing I'll look at the chat box if there are any questions, right?
All right. Thank you, Brother Harishaka Ali, for that meaningful and beneficial sharing based on your experience in product development projects for IT field. Dear respectful guests, brothers and sisters, we shall proceed to our next session. In this Q&A session, if you have any question, you may type it in the chat box or open your mic to ask your question. So, Brother Harun, there's some question in the chat.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
those. Okay, I'll start addressing those immediately, right? So the question is, the first question I see here, right? An advice on people who are doing unrelated courses, but is a self-taught programmer. So this is for IT, right? If you're a self-taught programmer, and what's my advice to you as a first job as a developer, as soon as you graduate, right? And how do you compete with other graduates? Okay, so it's like this. And this is from real example, right? I've had two people who are working in the company I work in. who started at engineering. They did 2 years there. They realized this is not the area which I will probably go into, right? So anything after that realization becomes a waste for them in their mind. They'll be like, everything I study after this realization might be unrelated. So what do I do then? How do I get my first job, etc. In some cases, if people are lucky enough and they will shift, so in these cases, the people I know, they shifted their career to ICT actually, because they were more, towards IT. And then whatever they learned, they grasped with IT, and now they're in the IT field, right? In our company actually. Now, if you're in an area where you feel that everything you're learning is unrelated, right? Then you might have to really explore one thing is if there's any chance for you to at the study level, right, change your area. Because the idea is, let's say if you're doing IT, right, that's an area you're kind of interested in. Unrelated items are, non-core subjects. There are only a few, right? And that is, as I said, you can always benefit from them. But I'll be very frank here, right? It is difficult if you're in an area itself, your entire 4 years, if that's the feeling that is unrelated, right? Then that will be difficult. It's still okay, it's doable, in the sense that your self-taught area, if you're programming, let's say in this example, if you learn self-taught programming and you're really good at it, right? What you will do is start applying for your interest area, which is programming, right? Start applying in as many places as you can. In many cases, right, let's say if you get called for an interview, the first thing they will ask you is that, hey, you studied something else, but you're applying for programming. Why? Right? And be prepared to convince people that while you have studied one area, you're really good in this other area, and at least take you to the stage of where they test you. If you're going into a technical job, there's always an interview, which is a technical interview in most big companies, right? Even small companies these days. And because, let's say, if you're passionate about programming and not passionate about the other unrelated areas, pretty sure, inshallah, you're so good at it that if they give you a chance for a technical interview, you can do really well and show them, right? So your best plan of action is to try to at least get to that spot where you get chances for a technical interview. Show them your programming, right? I mean, get a chance for you to do the technical test where you can show your actual skill, which you picked up by yourself. Because I think if a company sees that, even if your area is completely different, if they see that, hey, you have performed really well in technical interviews, they will consider you for sure, right? So that's one of my advice, and that's what I will advise you with this. Right. Example of research studies in the CS and IT field. Not sure what the research courses are right now, but the idea is this, right? Let's say you do computer science, you will reach a point where, for example, masters, right? You have choices, masters by research or masters by coursework, all right? If you have a decision at that point, or if you're very sure of a decision, make it. I would advise against, saying, let me do the research first and then I will think about it after 2 years. It might work, but in many cases, it might really burn you out, because research is something which not everyone can handle. I can't handle research myself. I'll admit it, right? So the idea is to know exactly at some point in your studies what you want to go towards, and that will help you, right? If you do coursework, you can start looking for a job on the side, and your class timings will help your job timings as well. Research, you might not be able to do that easily because there's just too much work. If you're not into research, you might not like it, right? So know about those. Now, almost your computer science, your IT, library, information science, all of those have research areas as well as coursework areas, right? Research means you need to add to the technology body of knowledge, right? Which means you need to come up with your own topics and research those. Research is excellent for people who want to go into academics at a certain point in time as one of your goals, right? And that's where you will go for research. Otherwise, it's up to you. I mean, if you feel like you will do research but also fit in the technological IT field in the industry, go for it, but be prepared, because it might be a bit difficult, right, to balance certain things. That's what I would say. Now, another question. Do you think BBA with minor IT can help students enter IT jobs easily? I haven't. So I have a brother who's doing BBA, but I haven't looked into his field much, so I don't know exactly what it does, right? But okay, so this is, for me, it's a live example now. My brother has done BBA for UIA. His main job right now is actually IT job, all of IT. So he joined a company to actually see if he can teach economics or something like that, right? But that company is an IT company. He learned IT because he had some background in IT, and now he does training in IT. And he does not do any BBA stuff in the IT area right now. So it kind of depends on, you do have a chance if you choose the companies you apply to, right? I wouldn't say, I mean, easily or difficult depends on your performance in the interviews, right? And the jobs you approach to. If you have a minor in IT, try to aim for at least areas where you can enter as a junior and start with your IT career, right? If you have a minor in IT, don't straight away apply for Google and then get disappointed if Google does not accept you. I mean, that's an example, right? Be happy to apply for smaller positions, because that's where, if you do only IT, you're going to grow your IT experience, right? And then in future, with your BBA experience and a lot of IT experience, you can get into much easier, better jobs, right? So easy or tough depends on where you apply, how you perform, and so many other factors these days. So I would say my advice is, look for IT jobs, but realistically aim medium as well, right? Things which you can get into easily, start building experience, because you want more experience than academics at that point in your life. Aim for that. Yeah. Now, let me see.
There's also another last question from Brother Mas.
Okay, there it is. All right. Is there any specific technology or software that fascinates you and I think that people should know about? All right. And I've seen someone ask Brother Haris, can he ask one more question? Yes, you may. I'll address your question after I answer this one, right? And what software do I use as a project manager? Okay, so right now this is going to sound cliche, right? But one of the most important software I use still as a project manager, right, is the classic Office software and Microsoft Project. So your Microsoft Suite, right? The reason that's very important, and I would say, when I mentioned that this is not something people look for, it's not something you can mention in your resume that you know only this, because everyone knows this, right? But if you know something like Microsoft Office really well, it will always help you out. Because when you come at a point where you're having big company meetings, even as a project manager, right? Big meetings, big companies, they might have tried many other software, but they will always come down to the basic software which everyone uses, right? So if you know that well, you can fit in any meeting, any work environment, right? Now, besides that, as a project manager, I'm always a fan of this project management tool software, which is online, right? Microsoft Project is something you install, but I do like something called Trello a lot. That's the software which I use in everything. So I would say, okay, knowing how the industry is going, right? Software like Trello, Jira, then what else was there? Microsoft Project, anything which helps you learn a bit of agile project development, project management, as well as you can use it for non-agile stuff, for anything else, is a useful software. Like, so my software which of choice over here will be Trello and Microsoft Office, the normal one, and Slack. If you have not heard of Slack, it's like a communication software, right? If you learn these three software, you have a good chance of adjusting to almost any IT industry as soon as you join in, because most people are using these software or software which look and feel like these software: Slack, Trello, and all the Microsoft Office suite, right? So if you can find your way around those will be my software of choice. And I think that's what everyone should, pick up on. Another reason is things like Slack, Trello, they have really good free versions, right? You can always learn them nicely, and it's always good to know. In fact, in our interviews, when we have new candidates, we actually give a task where we ask them to learn Trello a bit and perform some Trello tasks, right? It's not mandatory, but people who know software well, they do it very well. I think those are very good software to go ahead with. Okay. I guess there's one final question here, so I'll look into that as well. Okay, Web3 technology. I'll be honest, I haven't heard or read up much on it, I guess. So I can't comment on that much, right? Yeah, I don't know much about the Web3 technology. Perhaps I'll have a look at it after this meeting, etc. Or if someone can just tell me what it is about in summary, then I can help you answer this, right? But well, I can say at least, well, in my work area, and we work mostly in the education sector, right? So we have a lot of universities as clients and so on. Some government clients, all making software, etc. And in none of these areas, anyone has mentioned Web3 technology. So I would say the future of this, at least in the current work environment, is, well, it's not being used much, I guess, right? Or it's not being used by that name, the Web3 one. So yeah, sorry to say, but I don't have much knowledge on it. I'll perhaps pick it up later. Actually, that also just helps me. I mean, yeah, just want to give an advice on this thing, right? When you're in a field like this, like mine, IT, etc., right? You will have many situations where you might not know of these new technologies, etc. Don't feel bad. I mean, 1 year ago, I did not know any of those technologies which my programmers are currently using, right? Never be shy of just Googling, trying to know of this new technology, and then, using it at your work. So even though I'm in the IT field, I Alhamdulillah do pretty well as project manager at my area, in my company, etc. There are many technologies which I'm not aware of, and some I might even have forgotten from the university. But yeah, I just, I Google and just learn it overnight or something like that, or over a weekend sometimes, and then you know about it, right? But for Web3 specifically, I don't know exactly the terminology, so sorry, I can't answer on that much. Yeah. Right. I've not missed any questions, have I?
I don't think so.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, all right. So before we end, I would like to remind you to stay in the meeting for a while for the photography session. And once again, don't forget to fill in the attendance and feedback form given in the chat box. And please do take a look and follow our SITC Instagram. So yeah, we can start with the photography session.
All right. Do I have to click something here like the, yeah, I guess this one.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Everyone's ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. The freestyle. Okay. Okay then.
All right. Okay, everyone, we are now at the end of our session. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to apologize for any shortcomings. We shall end with the recitation of Tasbih Kifarah Surah Al-As. I would like to thank everyone again for coming and making this program memorable and successful. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Right. Assalam.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Arun.